Race Weekend is brought to you by Phoenix Fuels.
Make every trip come alive with Phoenix Fuels, now with Pulse technology.
Local grassroots motorsports events have grown strong these past 2 years, both in participation and in popularity. What has been lacking is a program where outstanding racers can further develop their skills and upgrade to more professional racing in hopes of making motorsports a sustainable career. This year, the Formula V1 Challenge hopes to be that program. Up next, highlights of Round 2 of the 2018 Formula V1 Challenge on Race Weekend.
A whole new league on the same familiar track here in Clark International Speedway for Round 2 of the 2018 Formula V1. What is Formula V1 Challenge? Let's go check it out. After a great start to its inaugural season earlier in the year, two close and exciting races each for both professional and amateur classes in perfect conditions for racing at the Batangas Racing Circuit, the 2018 Formula V1 Challenge finds conditions very wet and very slippery, more challenging for Round 2 at the Clark International Speedway. Two races were on the schedule on race Saturday for both the pro and the amateur classes, but the wet weather had other ideas. I'm here with a very familiar face in motorsports. His father was a great racer, and now he's handling almost all of the races here in Clark International Speedway. This is JP Tuason. Hi JP, thank you for joining us here in our show.
How you doing? Thanks, Ree. I want to welcome everybody to the GT Formula V1 Challenge 2018. It's been a very exciting day, a lot of rain and a lot of action. We've actually had to postpone our race 4 because of the weather, but we had a fantastic race 3, and coming out on top we have Luis Gono winning the pro class, and in the amateur class we have Sean Smith.
Okay. Now, since you've already announced the winners of today's race, can you just give the viewers an idea of what the V1 Challenge is all about?
Well, the idea for the Formula V1 races is to upgrade local drivers from grassroots level and move them forward into more professional type racing. So the Formula V1 car is very similar to a single-seater, and our idea is to bridge the gap between our local grassroots racing to professional international racing.
Well, it's a new-looking car. So can you tell the viewers how well the cars handle this Clark is a very high-speed track.
Yeah, so basically at this track, the cars that we have, they run a very similar engine to the local Toyota Vios. It's got a 1NZ engine, and it only has 110 horsepower, but because of the weight, the car only weighs 530 kilos. It's very lightweight. The lap times around the track are very similar to a supercar.
Over much of the race weekend, intermittent rains kept changing track conditions at the Clark International Speedway from just nearly damp and manageable to treacherously wet and challenging. While the Formula V1 cars are, according to the racers themselves, quite predictable and controllable at high speeds on dry surfaces, things were quite different in the wet, as they found out during practice, qualifying, and the race itself. It is also worth noting that the more V1 cars were on the grid, a sure sign that the event, as well as this particular motorsport discipline, is catching on, locally and in the region. Newcomers including Daniel Miranda of Toyota Balintawak Avengers, Paolo Mantolino of Parts Pro Racing, Indonesian Yasuno of AP Cars, and Charlie Cuanco of Front Row Racing surely had a baptism not of fire but of rain. The drivers competing in the amateur class found it quite challenging, especially after competing in near-perfect conditions in the first 2 races of the season in Batangas.
During the first round, UC and I are actually quite close battling. We were battling closely with each other, and it was a good race. UC and I finished 1 and 2. So first race, UC finished first, and second race, I finished first.
We were racing down in Batangas at that time, back in May, and I got used to the car very quickly. It's very controllable, it's a very predictable car. So I was quite comfortable with it right off the bat, and I managed to win the first race at that time. And then in the second start, I got second place. So that basically got me tied with the points with Sean Smith at that point, as I was very happy with the first round.
Oh, the first round, we had a good run. We came third in both races. Nice dry race. And BRC, it's a track I like, BRC.
Despite the rains on the wet track, Sean Smith, who races for Parts Pro Racing, found racing in the wet fun, and he won in race 3.
I would describe it as, I guess, fun, because even though it's unpredictable, it was quite exciting to do, and the challenge that the rain gives off is very high, so it even makes racing even more fun. Well, one of the biggest challenges that I encountered was the amount of spray coming off from the other vehicles, because with the spray from the other vehicles, you can't really see where you're going. So it adds even a greater challenge to the racing.
Well, I had a lot more difficulty here getting used to the car with these conditions. Trying to get the setup correct, for these conditions is really a challenge, and I didn't have a lot of time to practice. So going in, I knew I was going to be a bit off the pace, especially compared to Sean, who was really my main rival at that time, at the moment. So sure enough, he got a fantastic start in the race. Overtook a lot of people and ended up, getting a deserved win. I got second place. Still happy with that. The most challenging part was basically the fact that, midway through the race, the conditions were changing. So it would dry up, but then it would, start raining again. So you never know what kind of corner speed you can enter into the next corner. You just have to kind of guess it and hope for the best. So that makes it a real challenge to drive in changing conditions. I don't mind if it's wet all the time or if it's dry all the time, because then you can adjust for it. But when you don't know what's happening in the next corner, that makes it really challenging. At the end of the day, it's the same for everyone, so it's fair. And I guess, the guys who can adjust for that quickly are the ones who come out on top. So
Shane Henderson, who races for Parts Pro Racing Team, was far from happy with his performance in the rain.
Not too good, because I got brought back to the pits twice in the ambulance. This is not a good way. The challenging is the wet weather. You get water on the track, and it doesn't matter how good a driver you are. If you hit the water and it's too deep, the car just aquaplanes off the track. Nothing you can do about it.
In the pro class, Luis Gono of the Clean Fuel Racing Team made the most of wet weather conditions, topping the time sheets in both free practice and qualifying race. Starting from pole, Gono held on to the lead and even building a gap to Tyson C of Parts Pro Racing in second, and Daniel Miranda driving his first Formula V1 race for Toyota Balintawak in third. But with the weather worsening midway through the race, a full course yellow was called, and the race was later cut short behind the safety car, giving Gono his first win this Formula V1 season, with C in second and Miranda in third. The scheduled race 4 for both pro and amateur have been postponed for the next round of competition in October. After the challenging wet round 2, the racers are all looking forward to the dry round 3.
One thing I'm looking forward to is the dry weather, because I feel like I can qualify better in the dry weather, and with the dry weather it's more consistent, and so the racing will be even closer together and less unpredictable.
Well, the third round is at the end of October, on October 27th, here in Clark again. We expect that to be a dry round. Normally the wet season's over, so I really look forward to that, because in the dry we get much closer racing. Everybody's really on their game, and I think I'll be more competitive at that time. At least I hope so.
And that does it for our coverage of round 2 of the 2018 Formula V1 Challenge. This is Ray Louis Gamboa. See you next week.
Again, it will be a long wait for the next round of the 2018 Formula V1 Challenge for both competitors and fans. Still, it's fairly certain that the long wait should be worthwhile, especially with the competition heating up and reasonable expectations of more cars on the grid.
This week's feature on Race Weekend has been brought to you by Phoenix Fuels.
Make every trip come alive with Phoenix Fuels, now with Pulse technology. These are the Fuel Masters. Every time they're on the court, it's high performance. Every time I'm on the road, I can also expect high performance from Phoenix Fuels. We made it! The next generation Phoenix Fuels, now with Pulse technology, delivers enhanced power and acceleration to make every trip come alive.